Once Upon a Headline presents, as seen in the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco, California, dated Wednesday, January 13, 1897. The orphan industry is understood by Mr. Dryden. My earliest impression of the orphans and the enviable position these sorrow-laden ones enjoyed in a social and dramatic way broke out in me at that uncertain age, when infants are first addicted to thoughts. Ridiculous as it now seems, I fairly foamed with the desire to shine as an officially declared orphan and be given away to some other family after doing the provinces in a special car. My brother Bill shared this brave ambition. We both wanted to become orphans and win renown on the lyric stage. The heralded approach of one carload of assorted orphans shipped out from the slums of New York to Monmouth, Illinois, for distribution among childless Christian homes, set the small brains of Bill and me into a dizzy whirl. Our joint fund of information concerning the orphan business was somewhat limited then, but we are both sadder and wiser now. It fired us with the spirit of emulation to learn that some children like ourselves, they called themselves orphans, were traveling westward behind a snorting locomotive and would give a slightly thrilling performance in the town. An announcement to that effect was given out by the Sunday school superintendent. The troupe would entertain with a concert and dialogue in the Methodist church, during which those in need of children could inspect the band and make selections. A New York Mission Society had engaged in the noble work in gathering those starving, God-forsaken waifs from the abodes of squalor and misery, and mixed ale of the metropolis, and finding them refuge in the hospitable homes of the Middle West. Many bustling towns and villages in that plenteous region, where the church, instead of the saloon by reason of local option, constitutes a poor man's club, and where poverty of the kind that pinches in practically unknown, threw open their doors to the little strangers. Car after car did the mission send out, until thousands of firesides reared living monuments to the forgotten dead in distant burying grounds. But the supply far exceeded the demand. In time, the tide of Eastern orphans flowed elsewhere, but not until Monmouth had done her duty by listening to a concert in piping, childish trebles, and promptly adopting the entire bunch. Pending the arrival of the private car and its distinguished contents, Bill and I talked in our sleep, mostly about orphans, and dreamed night and day of what we should do when successfully embarked upon a similar career. The theatrical features of the expedition alone appealed to us. The wild, tumultuous ride in the oars, the street parade, and the plaudits of admiring congregations. Bill, being younger and less experienced than myself, insisted on a black face turn, while I held that a genteel song and dance in pink velvet knee breeches and cuffs was the only strictly proper specialty for star orphans on the road. This point was still unsettled when the talent arrived one sharp autumn night, and Bill and I, quite purple with suppressed excitement, set off to see the performance. We wore our Sunday school uniforms, and, busy with the thoughts of a glorious future, ran all the way to the church, except for a brief halt occasioned by Bill. Before starting, he thoughtfully immured both arms to the elbows in his trouser pockets. Thus we sprinted along side by side, as brothers should, until we struck a cross-board sidewalk in the shadow of Professor Price's umbrageous maple trees. There I stepped on the end of a loose plank the fraction of a second before Bill arrived at the other. His toes caught, and forward he plunged along the silvery boards on his tender frontispiece. The slide peeled a wide, thick strip of skin from his forehead, nose, lips, and chin, and also ruffled the epidermis on his wishbone. Bill's hands, being safely stowed in his pockets, escaped injury. When we reached the church, the sleep-beleaguered orphans stood grouped in a sort of minstrel first part on the platform, singing their young lives out. The little band was in charge of a tall, narrow man, the deathly pallor of whose face was heightened by the inky blackness of his whiskers. At the end of the first song, he handed each child a voice trochee and swallowed one himself. I attributed his bleaching to the trochees, but it is highly probable that the blue mass pills and basket luncheons had something to do with his complexion. For some reason, the show fell flat to us. It must have been on account of Bill, who certainly did not appear at his best. No matter which way he turned, Bill seemed to be peeping roguishly out from behind a blood-red post much too small for him. And the pine splinters sticking to his tear-gummed cheeks did not enhance the boyish beauty of my only brother. After the third old lady, beaming with mother love and benevolence and goodness of heart, had proposed to adopt Bill, he got mad in the Methodist church and swore out loud. So we went home with our young ambition nipped in the bud, but only for the present. In the fullness of time, we learned that there are other and more lasting joys than losing a boy's best friend. That concludes this episode of Once Upon a Headline, where history whispers to us from beyond the ink.